What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're adding a new car to the channel. This is going to be Cam's new track car. We just picked it up. I'm sure you guys have probably seen it before on the channel. In fact, I know you guys have because I put this car together with Royale probably about a year ago. He decided that he wanted to move on from the car and put it up for a pretty good price. He got me a little bit of a deal because I helped put the car together and supplied a lot of the parts to build the thing. So I convinced Cam to pick it up so she can have a track car. So let's turn the camera around and see what we got.
Hey, I'm Cam. I just got the 1993 Honda Civic VX hatch in the partial Captiva blue. Yeah, she a trooper.
So this car has been in our friend group for quite a while. It's pretty rough exterior wise. It's been through some shit. It was built by a guy down south from us, Ulysses, and it was sold to Corey, the guy that lent Will the Evo at last year's on-grid track day, the one that sprayed oil all over the track. He ended up selling that to Steven Dodson, my Hornet coach, basically. Steven owned this for quite a while, had a GSR engine in it for quite some time, and then Steven ended up taking the motor out of the car to put in his Hornet Integra, which you should hopefully see on the channel soon, and sold this to Royale as a shell. We ended up putting a motor and transmission in it. We're going to go over that in just a second, but Royale ended up selling the car to Cam, and now it's hers to do some track day stuff with. I figured that the Fit's kind of having some setup issues. I feel like this car would be a little bit easier to get set up right, just because I know how to set one of these cars up a lot better than I would know how to set up the Fit. It's going to be really fun. I'm really excited for her to get out on track with this thing. So let's go over the engine first off, and then we'll talk about suspension, interior, and what we're going to do with the car.
So under the hood, we have a JDM B20B with the LS transmission.
This transmission is out of my old turbo car. I used it for a little bit and just kind of had it as a spare. Sold it to Royale for a reasonable price. I sold him the harness for the engine. It's got a V18 B1 intake manifold on it because the stock CRV manifold doesn't clear the hood. Basically bone stock engine. We just did a clutch, timing belt, water pump, all that stuff, and we got it. Other than that, under the engine bay, it has a shitty Chase Bays power steering setup that we're going to get rid of very soon. These things like to spray power steering fluid out of the cap and wreck the timing covers. Ask me how I know it happened.
As far as exhaust goes, we have a 4-to-1 header with the Yonaka catback exhaust.
So this is just a generic unit. I don't know what brand it is. No idea. Royale put it on the car. The exhaust is probably going to go. It's pretty loud. Not sure if this is going to be posted before or after the video that I took this thing to Pacific Raceways, but I can barely hear myself think in the helmet, so we have a muffler coming for it in the mail, and we'll get it on the car, hopefully quiet it down a little bit so we can actually talk to each other when we're on track.
It's got eBay motor mounts on it, a spoon strut bar, and part of a Comptech airbox.
Royale had this Comptech airbox on the car. These things are fucking garbage. Let's just be honest here. This part is really poorly designed, really expensive, takes forever to get, fell apart on the road. He ran over the little nozzle that comes down into the bumper, so that's gone. The top of the airbox flew off on track because these things won't stay together. We're gonna get rid of this thing. It sucks, don't buy one. The motor mounts are a little rough.
We'll be replacing them.
Yes, we have OEM ones coming, just to put some quieter stuff in the car and make it a little bit more civil to drive on the street. Doesn't need crazy motor mounts. It's a stock V20, so that'll help a lot with the vibration inside the car, make it a little bit more pleasant.
This thing is a 4-corner DC Integra brake conversion.
When the car was first put together, the spindles were swapped to just regular DC brakes. It's got some drilled and slotted rotors on it, HP Plus brake pads. In the back, I think it's just got like some O'Reilly's pads or something, but it's disc converted as well. Had some Willwoods on it for a little bit. Steven couldn't get them to bleed. I wouldn't really recommend the Willwoods for track use anyways. Master cylinder is stock as well as the booster. The pedal pressure feels awesome. It's got Motul RBF 660 brake fluid in it right now. We might convert the booster to an Integra model. The Civic one's working pretty good for now, so we're probably going to leave it alone, but normally when you do this brake conversion, you're supposed to convert the master cylinder as well, but this one just hasn't been done.
The car is on ST suspension coilovers with True Heart upper control arms with energy suspension and polyurethane bushings the entire car. It has a DC Integra front sway bar and steering rack conversion.
Brand new rack. Steven put this one in. The DC rack has a quicker lock-to-lock ratio than the stock VX Civic. I think that this came with no power steering from the factory. If I'm correct, I don't really know a lot about the VXs. I just know that they have some weird engine in them, 5-wire O2 sensor, bunch of strange stuff. Makes wiring on this car kind of difficult, but we're having some issues getting the wideband to work in it, but we're gonna move to the rear suspension next.
It has Voodoo 13 billet control arms, Progress rear sway bar with a brace, True Heart upper control arms. The car is on the chipped P75 running on HTS software.
We have an Innovate wideband in the interior. It's having some issues right now. I think that I did kind of a shit job of wiring it, but I street tuned this car myself. I street tuned my previous engine in my green EG. I'm not the best tuner in the world, but this thing gets down the block all right. I'm not sure how much horsepower it's making. We haven't seen a dyno with this car yet. I don't think we will for quite a bit. It runs decent enough, needs a little bit of cleanup, gets really bad gas mileage, but as a whole, it is a usable car. I've tracked it with the tune on it currently. It's not gonna blow up or anything like that. It's doing all right, but a little bit more refinement on the tune is needed. I'm having some issues getting the wideband wired into the car, so we need to get that dialed in before we can actually finish the tuning process.
For the driver's seat, we got a Buddy Club P1 with matching hardware.
We're probably going to end up switching the rail out to something a little bit nicer. I'm not a huge fan of these Buddy Club rails. They're not the strongest things in the world. I have a Recaro bracket that I'm going to try and put in this car just to make the seat mounting a little bit stronger. The slider gets stuck every now and then, so I just want to make sure she's safe.
For the harnesses, we have a core bore harness bar with auto power harnesses.
These are 5-point harnesses. We're gonna put a roll bar in this thing. I'm not a huge fan of harness bars. They work, but they don't offer any sort of rollover protection, just in case something happens. I think that a roll bar is the best way to mount seat belts to a car if you're doing a 4-point or 5-point. Definitely don't recommend a 4-point. If you have a seat that has a hole for this, run a 5-point, run a 6-point, do what you gotta do, but roll bar is the way to go. It's gonna add a little bit of weight to the car, but this car weighs like 2,050 pounds total right now, at least as far as the title goes. It does have a different engine, so maybe like 2,100, but this thing's really light, so a roll bar is not gonna hurt it.
The chassis has 289,000 miles on it, but the engine has 60,000, allegedly, and transmission is unknown mileage. For the wheels, we have Koenig Hypergrams 15x8 plus 35 with 205 50/50 Kumo V730.
These tires are takeoffs from the Fit from last year. They got some weird wear on them, but these things are like indestructible. I'm sure that we're gonna get a whole other season out of them. They're doing pretty good. They're a little bit heat cycled, but when I took them to Pacific, I really enjoyed how they felt. So these things got tons of life left in them. This thing had some nasty R888s on it that I used to have, that I ran at ORP like 2 years ago. Thank God we got rid of those. They're 22 date code, but I'm pretty hard on tires, so I usually don't get more than a season, if not less than a full season out of a set of tires. So hopefully Cam will be a little bit nicer to the car and get some life out of these things.
Plans with the car. I'm just going to be autocrossing it for a little bit, getting comfortable with the car, getting comfortable driving myself, planning on tracking it eventually, just using this car to improve as a driver myself. Aaron has been such a help, and I'm so grateful for him.
So I think that's going to be about it. This might be a pretty short video, just going over the car, what you expect to see on the channel. We're going to probably leave this car mostly untouched just because it's pretty much done. It's really easy to drive as is. I had a great time at Pacific Raceways with it. I'm going to post this before the Pacific Raceways video just so we can get familiarized with what I'm driving. Plan to see a lot more of this thing on the channel. Main thing that we need to get taken care of right now, figure out the power steering system, get a tune on it, a couple of small stuff like that, but we're going to be taking this out and Cam's going to be driving it the day after the Double Ridge Day coming up next weekend. So I'm really excited to see her drive this thing and see what she thinks. She hasn't taken this thing out on autocross yet, but since my car's been broken, I stole it from her and took it to Pacific. So thank you guys for watching. Cam was very nervous this video. Proud of her for putting up with it. Proud of her for buying her own car, and I'm excited to see where she goes as a driver.